What's going on, everybody? Wanted to make an overview video and owner review of my 2013 Suzuki DL650A, aka V-strom. This is a bike I purchased used back in January, and as my second V-strom I had a 2006 V-strom 650. And a lot of people are familiar with these bikes, that they're very good all-around general purpose motorcycles, very versatile. A lot of people put them in the adventure touring category, which everybody's got an opinion as to what is an adventure touring bike, and basically it is a range of different things. I'm not going to say that this is a full-on ADV bike. However, I do have it set up with a few additional parts, such as the skid plate there. I'll get into that in a minute, but not a powerhouse of a bike. I think these make somewhere in the neighborhood of 62 to 64 horsepower and I think around 45 foot-pounds of torque. So, it's not going to win any drag races or land you any bragging rights, but plenty of power to get you where you need to go, and this thing will cruise all day long at 80 miles an hour, loaded up with gear. I'm not saying it's going to have a ton of passing power, but it'll do it. And the great thing about this motor is it's incredibly smooth. Being that it's a 90-degree V-twin, it has good primary balance and doesn't shake your feelings out like a narrower V-twin engine would do. So, a couple of things to note about this bike, just the different accessories that are on it. Like I said, I've got this skid plate, which this particular one is a Touratech. I bought this one because it does fit nice and tight around the engine sump, provides plenty of protection for that very vulnerable oil filter that I don't know why they stuck down there or didn't put something from the factory, at least some sort of plastic guard to go over it just to help from flying rocks, things like that, because a lot of people don't take these things off-road, and it's not necessary to have that much protection underneath this bike for just someone playing around on the street. But I think it looks nice. It kind of fits in and blends in pretty nicely with the rest of the bike without being too bulky like some of the bigger, heavier duty engine guards. But again, some people take their bikes off-road and need that additional protection. And then coming up here, I've got these engine guards. These are made by, I think the pronunciation is Puig, P-U-I-G. I've been familiar with them for making windscreens, but didn't know they made other stuff. I think it's a Spanish company. And these are fairly similar to the GV engine guards, which I was actually going to buy, but they were out of stock at the time that I was looking for some, and found these instead for a little bit less money. So got those. They fit just fine. I don't have any issues with noise or vibration that some people have reported with engine guards, particularly that little center joint. Some people have used neoprene washers or plastic washers to help isolate some of the vibration, but so far so good. Haven't had any issues. And then I've got the AdventureTech fork brace. That was on the bike when I purchased it. This thing had about 7,500 miles on it and had a few of the AdventureTech items, which some people know him as Richland Rick, but that's his company's name is AdventureTech. And fork brace, some people say it's not necessary. It definitely helps. I put one on my old V-strom and noticed a big difference in how it handled and just tracked straighter through, not straighter, but tracked better through corners. So I think it's a worthwhile upgrade, especially for around $100. Coming up on the front of the bike, I've got the GV Airflow windscreen, which is adjustable. You can see the channels that slides up and down on. And it's got this shape here that's relieved for your handlebars, and you can see that those fit really nicely with the aftermarket handguards. Actually, these are the Suzuki handguards, but they're not original to the bike. And that's we'll go on to those. They're just the basic plastic knuckle guards. I use them more for wind protection and just keeping bugs. And if you see the little holes drilled in there, that's where I've actually drilled some holes to attach a little bit of an extension, which helps during the cold winter months to help ward off some of the chill another Adventure Tech item are these mirror extenders. Really good for people my size that are just broad-shouldered and have a hard time being able to see what's behind you with the stock mirrors. And I don't have the stock mirrors on anymore. These are Aprilia mirrors for the Tuono. I think BMW uses these same mirrors on like the GS as well, so they're getting them from some supplier. But nice mirror that has a little bit wider field of view, and they also, some people report, to cut down on some of the wind buffeting, since the stock mirror is just a flat plastic square, more or less. Also got aftermarket handlebars. This bike actually was tipped over by the previous owner, which you could tell because the bar end weight was kind of scratched up and the bolt was bent a little bit. And then the other thing I noticed, I'll get into in a minute on my luggage, but this passenger foot brake bracket was bent a little bit, and had to kind of tweak on that to get my luggage racks to fit properly. But anyway, so I didn't like the real drastic back sweep on the stock bars, so I went ahead and bought the ATV high bend Pro Tapers, which partially I knew that when I bought my Kyoko friction throttle lock, I could get one that works with these bars. The internal diameter is perfect, and they make this particular throttle lock available for the 7/8. Actually, they're all 7/8 out here, but for the Pro Taper bars. So I like those a lot, and you'll see my little, this is actually from a fortune cookie I thought was pretty appropriate that I got one time and just held on to that for a long time. You are an adventurer, travel the highway of life. Alright, one last thing up here is my Ram Mount X grip, just for my cell phone, and then I've got my power cord that goes down to this dual USB plug, which I got from a boating and marine store. Oh, other thing, I don't know if you can see down in there, those yellow wires right there coming out. That's just more noticeable than the stock wiring harness. These are a H4 relay kit from a company called Eastern Beaver. A guy that lives in Japan, but he's, I believe, an American. His name's Jim something or another. Sells a bunch of nice electrical items for the V-strom and some other bikes. You can get standard H4 kits for these things, but apparently the way Suzuki builds this, all of the voltage from the headlight passes through the switches over here, which over time can basically fry everything, and this bypasses all that. So not only preserves your electronics, but also gives you a little bit better lighting output from the halogen bulbs there. Oh, and I forgot my wind wings that I made myself. So one thing I've noticed in this bike, even after changing out the mirrors and still getting a bit of buffeting that was coming up from the bottom side of my helmet, and if you'll see this little kind of channel right here, the air sweeps around this way, and when it comes around the top of the tank right here, it moves up and ends up kind of coming up your torso and buffeting your helmet. So there's actually a guy on the Stormtrooper forum that came up with some little wind wings, and I was like, I can probably make those myself. So I just bought some Lexan from Home Depot, and it's not the prettiest thing, but I heated them up with a heat gun to form them and bend them after I cut the shape that I wanted, and pretty happy with the results. It actually makes a noticeable difference. And also installed this water bottle holder. This is actually a bicycle type holder, but they call it the Looney Bin. It's made by a company called Arundel, Arundel, and they make a lot of nice bicycle type products, and this is just adjustable, so I use a stainless steel insulated mug that works quite well, and I can cinch that down and it holds it nice and steady. And then I've just clamped it on using some parts that I had from a water bottle mount, and then that's just a universal clamp that I bought at Home Depot from their electrical aisle. and works quite well. There's my battery tender plug, and then moving down here I've got more adventure tech stuff. These I actually purchased, they weren't on the bike, but these are the foot peg extenders. Lowers them about an inch and then moves them about 1/4 inch forward. And then I've also got the optional shifter relocator, so it moves this further out. You get, especially with my big boots, I've got size 13s, it gives me a lot more room just to get my toe underneath there, and like those a lot. Another adventure tech item is the Sidestand Plate. So park it in some softer ground, you have some assurance that the thing's not going to sink in and fall over, and like that a lot. It's a lot cheaper than some of the other stuff like the Touratech brand one. And then these are the SW Motec foot pegs. I had some cheap eBay serrated pegs that were actually for a KLR, but you have to cut part of the mount off and then switch it around to the backside to get them in the right position on this bike. Otherwise they're kind of high and awkward feeling. But these are nice because they're actually adjustable. This mount right here, there's two positions. Kind of hard to get in there and show that to you, but I just was tired of some of the vibration I was getting through those all-metal pegs, so I wanted to get something that had a rubber top to it, and that has done the trick. A lot nicer than those cheapo pegs, so I like that a lot. And then this looks like the stock seat. It's actually the Suzuki accessory tall saddle. I think it's about an inch taller than the stock one. I'm 6'1", and I appreciate the extra leg room between that and the lowered pegs. Helps a lot, but also just it's more comfortable because it's not as dished out as the stock saddle, so I don't feel quite as locked in place. Coming around back here, got my setup here with these are Seahorse Cases, kind of like Pelicans, mounted on GB racks with the Happy Trails mounting pucks. They're just universal for any sort of plastic or metal pannier. And these are different sizes. This is a Seahorse 710, and that's a Seahorse 720, and you can see the one on the left side of the bike is wider. The only thing I don't like about the newer generation V-strom is that the exhaust, you can kind of see down in the front end of it, sticks out a lot further than the older one. The older ones seem like they fit a lot nicer and tighter against the bike, and so on this bike I went with the narrower case on the right side to keep everything relatively even. It ends up being about an inch wider on the right side, but it's not terribly noticeable to the eye. And then these are cool because the thing I like about the Seahorses opposed to the like Pelicans, at least when you just get the plain Pelican cases rather than like Caribou cases, which are more motorcycle specific, is that these do have the availability of these little locks, which it's just a cheap plastic key. It's not super high security, but it keeps honest people honest, I suppose, but it helps a little bit, gives a little bit of extra security, which I like. And then I've got GB top case plate, which don't have it on the bike. It's a 52 liter, I think it's the Maxia series. And then I've also got a brake light harness. This was on the bike when I got it, and so that's the plug that plugs into it. It's Ardmore lighting that makes that particular kit and the LEDs, so it's all synced up with your brake lights and your turn signals. So pretty nice little deal, but I just like keeping, when I have luggage on the bike, keeping the weight a little bit lower than what the top case does. And one more thing, I've got the tech spec Kneepads, just a little bit extra grip and comfort because it has a small amount of padding. It's maybe hard to see there, so I think that's more or less it. The only other I'll tell you I'm not very organized here. Fender extender, so just helps keep rocks from coming up, and I am going to get a radiator guard one of these days. I just haven't gotten around to it. And I made these ABS sensor guards. Another item I kind of copied this one from Touratech. They make a set which, for what they are, just seems really expensive, which all their stuff is pricey. These I just made out of cheap aluminum angle iron from Home Depot, and got some spacers, and those bolts are actually the factory bolts that came out of my one of the holes brackets for the crash bars. But I've got that one on the front, and then I've also got one on the rear. And then the one last thing that I do have, some wiring type stuff underneath the seat, which I'm not going to bother with showing you, is the Eastern Beaver 3-circuit solution. It's basically just a power system, so you can wire stuff in without actually having to tap into the battery. Excuse me. And so I've got my aftermarket horn. This is a Denali horn, which fits right down in there. Real similar to a Steeple. I think it's just slightly more compact, which is why I bought it. But it makes some noise. And yeah, that'll get some people's attention. And it's certainly fun to startle people when they're not paying attention and trying to change lanes into you or something like that. So that'll wake them right up. So I really enjoy this bike. It's not the most exciting, like I said, without a ton of power, but it rides so nice. It's got almost I think the newer ones actually have a little bit over 6 inches of travel, or right at 6 inches of suspension travel. So it just goes right over all kind of road irregularities and handles dirt roads pretty well. And suspension on this thing is noticeably better in its stock form than the 06, with the addition of ABS. Certainly is nice, but it's just overall better bike, not including those things that the 06 didn't have. And so I'm going to wrap this up and go grab my GoPro and do a ride-on video, so I'll split this up into 2 parts. Thank you very much for watching.